This has got to be like the 10th or 11th time I've tried to record this video in the series. And I swear to you guys, every time I try to record it, something goes wrong. And then I can't do anything with it, and I have to wait till the next time I have an opportunity to record, which they are very, very hard to come by these days. We got a little baby running around. Let me see here. He was born the last day of May. That was the 5th month, the end of the 5th month. We are at the middle of the 9th month, so he'll be 4 months in a little bit. It just doesn't, it feels like one big day. That's what it feels like. No sleep. Who needs sleep? What do you need sleep for? Like, why do you, who gets sleep when you're dead, you know? That's what it feels like. But I really want to get back. There's so much to talk about and chat about, not just with the history of this breed, but also with so many different things that have been coming up recently that we'd like to talk about. But rather than just, you know, go off and go crazy with a whole bunch of different videos, let's just start with getting back into this step into the ring. There is so much more coming. And I just want to, I want to take a moment to say that I know that this, if we were to divide the series up into 3 main themes, this middle theme might seem like we're a little bit off track. We're talking about all this history stuff that, Corey, make it make sense. Like, why are we talking about Hojo Masako? Why are we talking about all these other people that aren't actually Tosa owners or Tosa breeders? Why are we talking about this? And again, just reminding and sticking to the point that you cannot understand the dogs until you understand the people. And part of understanding the people is understanding where they're coming from, what their perspective is, what the context is. Okay? We're about to move forward a little bit, but I just want to say that while Hojo Masako and none of her, you know, siblings are known to have had dogs, it is important to understand that their clan was reputed to be favorable towards dogs. Now, whether or not that's something that we can confirm right now, I can't say. But that's what I've heard and read in different places. One thing I can say is that, again, the arc of history, the direction that these things took, these events took, as random as it might seem to us, as especially to the people at the time, right? Like, if we go back to when Yoritomo was running around and doing his thing. Well, first it was the Taira clan, then it was the Minamoto clan, then it was the Taira clan, it was the Minamoto, then it was the Cloistered Emperor, and so on and so forth. Everything seems so hectic and out of place. And I think it's easy to kind of look at things from that perspective and forget why it is we're talking about this stuff in the first place. Bear with me a moment. Okay, so for those of you that are wondering if Tosas make good guard dogs, we have a Tosa about 200 yards that way. And there is a delivery guy delivering a package about 300 yards that way. And my Tosas are, one of the Tosas is barking at him like, I see you, I don't know you, and you're not welcome here. Like, I don't know if y'all can hear that. He can't see me. I know he can hear me, though. If I told him to stop, he probably would. But the delivery guy's driven off. So, anyway, I forget what I was saying. So I'm just gonna keep going with, I guess, the general direction I was going. Yeah, you see all these little things that happen, and they go this way and they go that way, and just remembering how the story changed. Remember how the direction changed and the impact on the future. Again, if the Tairas had kept control and been what would ostensibly be the definition of what a samurai is, then again, you'd be talking about pirates. You'd be talking about more seafaring people, which probably would have changed the outcome of a very immediate event that's coming up in the next part of this history. But because it wasn't them, we had the chance for the samurai to be defined by something that a dog could emulate or exemplify, right? We have a chance now for the samurai to meet with and learn from these dogs, as opposed to, I don't know, learning from the sea or whatever, whatever they would have, whatever they would. I'm sure it would be something, something deep, some deep aspect of nature that we here in the West would probably often overlook. I'm not trying to cheapen it, but I am saying that it wouldn't have been Tosas, and therefore we probably wouldn't have had the dogs that we have to this day. Um, Same thing is true with the Hojo clan. If the Hojo era hadn't happened, like as we go further down, there are even Hojo clan members that, as leaders, accept payment in good dogs. And again, I say good dogs. I've seen some accounts that say they accept payment in good fighting dogs, but I can't really demonstrate those, and I don't know how solid that report is. So what does seem to be true is that several members of this clan, as we move forward into the future, were very appreciative of dogs and actually appreciated payment for certain things with dogs. And we got to imagine that at some point and in some ways there were Tosas in there. This is also the era where the practice definitely started of shoguns and leaders instructing their military to go and study the Tosa and learn. To recap, bear with me, I'm going to check my notes here. Okay, so the Hojo era, again, from 1199 to 1333. And I have some more notes here about the origins of the Hojo family, where they came from, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think that all that's necessary. There's definitely plenty of resources to go and find more information on that if that's what you're interested in. I do think that any of the aspects of the history here are worthwhile reads, just the same as they'd be for any country that you're learning about history. Anybody that you're learning about history, there's always something to learn. But as far as trying to keep this to our main discussion of the Tosa Inu, I don't think it's worthwhile to go too far into the Hojo family history at this point, so we're not going to do that today. We're going to go ahead and move forward. So, now that we have moved past or should I say rather, moved past the Minamoto era and into the Hojo era, we can say that we have established, as we've seen, certain political structures that turn the shogunate into kind of another figurehead, just like everything else, which again is important to understand, but it doesn't really change the essence and nature of what a samurai is, what it is to be a samurai, bushido, the warrior way, etc., etc. This is around the time, again, in this era, if you were to talk to any of the samurai in this era and tell them that you call them samurai in today's day and age, I think several of them, if not most, if not all, would probably be offended by that. It wasn't until much later on that they were coined samurai, and that phrase, that name stuck. Prior to that, they were Bushi, and Bushi means warrior properly. Samurai comes from the ancient Japanese word saburai, and it translates to serve. It's the infinitive of to serve. The meaning of samurai is to serve. And I can't stress enough how important that understanding is, how defining that is, right? I don't know what the origin of the English word knight is for the Knights of the Round Table and, the Crusades and stuff like that. I don't know what the origin of that word is, but I'm going to guess it has something more to do with nobility than it has to do with servant. On the other hand, the samurai called Bushi, right? Remember that they're called Bushi in this era, but the name samurai sticks eventually because of the fact that the defining trait of a samurai is the fact that they serve. It's not the fact that they fight. It's not the sword they use. It's not the armor they wear. It's none of that. Because you can have samurai of different ranks that have different types of armor, different amounts of armor, different levels of armor and quality. You can have them have different kinds of weapons. It could be a sword. It could be a bow and arrow. It could be both. It could be a short sword or a dagger. It could be a spear. It could be any number of weapons, and a properly trained samurai also knows how to use no weapon and use just their hands and their feet. And we can talk about more about that when we get into the sumo concept. But for now, just strictly talking about samurai, being a person who fought is not what made you a samurai. And quite frankly, even though joining the military, by definition, you would have to be a samurai in order to do it, again, the military wasn't the defining factor of a samurai. There could be samurai who weren't in a military. There could be Bushi, rather, who weren't in a military. The defining trait of a samurai, the defining thing, was service. And I don't mean in the sense that they necessarily poured tea and got washcloths and brought the dumplings, so much as I mean they served their lord. Now, it could have been a daimyo, it could have been the shogun proper, it could have been whoever it was they served somebody. And you could have a samurai that doesn't have a weapon. No sword, doesn't matter. He's still a samurai. He's still Bushi. You could have a samurai who doesn't have armor and doesn't look like what you expect to see when you look at like Yoshimitsu or whoever. You could have a samurai that doesn't have a horse, doesn't have property, doesn't have this, that, or the other thing. You can't have that with a Knight of the Round Table. They have all those things, and part of what defines them is those things. If they don't have land, if they don't have land, they aren't noble. Right? If they aren't noble, they aren't a knight. They're somebody who fights. And that is their defining trait over in England. In Japan, while there are a lot of similarities and inner like it's almost like they're the same. If you look at the Knight's Code, chivalry, and you look at the Bushi Code, Bushido. So many similarities, but these are things that were not related to each other, nor were they made at the same time, or should I say rather, nor were they made by the same people in the same location. Two separate ideas, but they are so similar. It's just, it's striking how similar they are in essence, in my opinion. That being said, there were some very striking differences in the way they played out. And again, what defined a knight was nobility. And again, your birthright, your lineage, and so on and so forth, and your right to become a knight, which made you a warrior, right, to a certain extent. No such thing was the case with the samurai by essence. Now, it's not to say that there weren't some people who were over them, be it a general, be it a daimyo, be it somebody who had it to where it was lineage based. You are of the line of such and such and such, and therefore you are a samurai. It's not to say that there weren't people that operated like that. There were throughout history at varying points, but that still was just the way they ran things, as opposed to what defined a samurai. I need to stress this so much, because when it comes to understanding the Tosa, I cannot stress to you enough how much control a a person has over a Tosa. Okay, it is odd, to say the least. Like I've worked with police dogs. I've worked with all kinds of different breeds, all different kinds of training, all different kinds of work. And I can tell you that, especially here in the West, the sign that a dog is a good worker is once they get on it, they're on it. You could have a bloodhound that's once it catches that trail, forget about talking to them. You could have a German Shepherd or a protection dog that is on it with the bad guy. That is it. You might as well get a break stick to get him off of them. You could have a catch dog that once they get on that animal, be it a cow or a pig or whatever it is, once they get on it, you got to be careful if you're going to go in there and break it up, because you can get bit yourself. The Tosa is the only breed that I know that is so concerned with their owner as a working dog. And it's not like a collie that's sitting there like constantly staring and monitoring and ready for the next thing and let's go. It's not that need. It's not an anxiety. It's just a calm, peaceful rationale and reasoning and working with you. It is so unique. And the more you understand about what the samurai was intended to be to their lord or to their leader, their master, you can better understand the perspective of how the Tosa is expected to behave around their owner. Are they independent thinkers? Absolutely. You don't go in that ring and then wait for your owner to tell you what to do like somebody pressing buttons on a controller. No, they are independent thinkers. They're extremely intelligent. They're extremely proactive. But there is, much the same as the samurai can be sent out to get the work done, there is a definite hierarchy in the way they see themselves related to the people that they see as their leader. And if you aren't their leader, it doesn't matter what you say or do. You are not their leader, period. And they don't have to bark or growl or any of that kind of stuff. It's not about a show. It's just the fact of the matter. You're not their leader. But if you are their leader, I can have two males that never met each other, don't know each other from Adam, right? From two different parts of the world, that are right next to each other, and they're looking at each other, they're posturing, and they're ready to go. And they're like, you are not insecure. You are confident. You think you're better than me. Let's go. And I mean, you can tell these dogs are hype and they are ready to go. And I can talk to them like I'm talking to you right now and say, no, let it go. And both dogs will stop looking at the other dog, turn towards me and say, and I can say, and they let it go. They let it go. I've had times where dogs tried to attack my Tosas or attacked my Tosa, and I can tell my Tosa to stop. I can tell him, hey, stop. And my Tosa will stop in the middle of the fight and look at me like, but, and I can tell him, stop. And he'll stop. And I know that if I have a fight, if I have something going on and something is trying to fight my Tosa, I don't have to worry about my Tosa. First off, nothing's going to injure it. Forget about it. It's not going to happen. And then second off, when it comes to it, I need to address the thing that has lost control. The Tosa hasn't lost control. I can grab the other dog and tell the Tosa to stop and let it go. I got this. Go do something else. And they will stop, particularly my boys. I'll throw in that qualifier. My boys will absolutely stop. And they'll be like, okay, you got it. And they'll go walk off and do something else. So female Tosas, on the other hand, they're a little bit different. And when we get to talking about the difference between male and female Tosas, maybe I'll make that video here sooner rather than later so that you guys can see the differences and hear about some of the differences that I'm talking about. But for now, just know that's not always the case with my female Tosas. Now, I'd say 6 or 7 out of 10, yes, they're just like that as well. but it's those 3 or 4 that you got to watch out for, because they look, if you start it, they are going to finish it until it's done, and they don't care, you know. Um, that being said, it has to be understood that there is no such thing as a pet Tosa in Japan. And there is also no such thing as a tolerable insubordinance. In the West, if I tell my dog to do something and he doesn't do it, and I say something along the lines of, "Oh, that's just his personality. He's just stubborn and old, and this, that, or the other thing," in the West, we do that. We do that. That's definitely something we do. With the Tosa, it's not. It's not. It's not. They want the dog to be confident. They want the dog to be assertive. They want the dog to be all of those things, much like you want your good warrior to be, but they should bend the knee to the daimyo. And the same thing is true for the Tosa. They will absolutely not take orders from someone they do not recognize. You might as well be speaking to them in a different language. It's not going in. And they will tell you it's not going in, But on the same token, that same dog, you could have their owner or the person that they recognize as their leader come up, and you don't even have to speak. They're sitting there, they're watching, they read your mind, and they say, "Okay, that's what we're doing. All right, let's go." And that's it. That's it. Like that's it. I don't know, those of you with military experience, it's how I imagine most countries that would create a soldier or train a soldier, it's how they would want them to be, right? But it's certainly how the samurai were. And to be clear, if a knight was to break the code of chivalry, if they were to no longer be knightly, right? They're still called a knight without a leader. I mean, ultimately, they are under the king, right? Everybody is. But a knight without a leader is still a knight. There's your difference there. Whereas with the samurai, if you no longer had a leader, your daimyo, your lord, your shogun, if you no longer had a leader, then you are no longer a samurai. There's an entirely different word to name you. You are a Ronin. And much further, the only reason why you should not be with your lord or your leader is because they died, right? Because if they're still alive, you have no business not being by them. Your role is that your life is their servant, right? To a certain extent. And kind of like a Secret Service agent hanging out down here in Texas while their president is, over in Louisiana or, wherever. It doesn't comport. And similarly for the samurai, you have no business being anywhere other than by your master's side. If your master has been killed, you have failed. Okay? And the fact that you are still alive makes it even worse. So again, the level of severity with which they took the job of their servitude, seppuku, which is the not to get too gruesome, but is the art of taking one's life more often than not by disembowelment, right? It is a quick and sure death. That's the purpose. Seppuku was a practice that came about for samurai that failed. And it could have been they failed in the most ultimate way and their master was killed because of their failure or in their failure. Or it could have been something that they were trusted with a certain job and they failed it. And seppuku. That's it. And it's also considered a proof of their loyalty, right? So again, this cannot be stressed enough the importance of that service part of samurai. They might not have always been called samurai based off of saburai, which is to serve, but they have always been defined by their service, if that makes any sense. Um, I think people romanticize the idea of a samurai that's fighting and hardcore and stuff. But let me put it this way: the first samurai I ever saw was Yoshimitsu from video games way back, and I mean even to this day he's still doing his thing. I don't know what kind of whatever experimental youth thing he's taken, but he's the same age as he was the first time I saw him. And quite frankly, I'm pretty sure Elmo is on the same thing, because let's face it, how is he still only 3? You can't still be only 3. I was 3 when I first saw you, Elmo. I ain't 3 no more. How are you still only 3? I wanted to stay 4 forever. You mean to tell me you figured out how to do it and I can't do it? How, what? Anyway, Yoshimitsu. A lot of people think of Yoshimitsu. I thought of Yoshimitsu anyway as a samurai. I'm pretty sure a decent amount of people do as well. But the catch is that Yoshimitsu is never presented with a master, a daimyo, a leader, a lord, a shogun. He is never presented with any of that. He just seems to be an independent fighter shrouded in mystery. Unless and until someone can come out and demonstrate how Yoshimitsu is fighting in these video games and these tournaments, right? Because he was ordered to do so for whatever reason by his leader. Um, Yoshimitsu is not a samurai. Yoshimitsu is a Ronin. And that is, it's interesting to think about, but it's important to understand if you're going to start to grasp the first thing about this breed. Tosas are not meant to go after people. Tosas are designed as dogs of combat, dogs of I would say dogs of war, but not dogs of war in the general sense, like the mastiffs that were used in the Roman wars and the English wars, etc. But they are doing a type of war in the ring, and they are equipped for that. And again, we'll come back to another reason why they're not intended to go after people, but it needs to be understood that they feel like the Japanese dogmen feel like one of the things they feel is that if the Tosa is given a temperament to go after people, then it could change its disposition towards its master and turn it into a unruly and undisciplined animal, which can cause a lot of trouble when you also consider how well they are equipped and how well they are built, right? Kind of like a samurai, a very good and experienced samurai without a leader can be a very frightening thing, because there's nothing to restrain them. There's nothing to direct them. They can be frustrated. They can be twisted. They can be a lot of different things. And they do not have that reference point, that compass point that so many others do. I am going to hope that you guys will forgive me this story time experience, but I just wanted to share a story right quick that kind of illustrates this, and then kind of get back to what we were talking about. So first things first, again, we're talking about ideals here. It's not to say that you won't find a dog that is different. For instance, there'll probably be plenty of people that'll say, I've met a Tosa or I've owned a Tosa, and that dog was super dog aggressive. It went after every dog, etc., etc. Or it wasn't really compliant with people, etc., etc., etc. And I'm gonna put it as gently as I can. There are a lot of people, far too many people, who are basing their knowledge on this breed on a dog they met that their friend had, or a dog or two that they might have had in life. The average person who has owned a Tosa is going to say that they are very familiar with the breed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the vast majority of people have owned, if they've owned any at all, if they've met one, if they've owned one, it's like one or two. And that's it. They might have had three if you found somebody that's had several. What I'm saying, honestly, throughout this series, it's not that every Tosa you meet is going to be this way. When it comes to people's experience versus the reality, right? There's a lot more to it than just what you've seen, even if you've seen a bunch of dogs. And beyond that, if all you've seen is dogs in the West and you've never seen a dog in the East, if you've never seen a dog in Korea, you never met a dog in Japan, you never met them, there is a presence that they enter a room with that is absolutely night and day from what you might find in the West. It is an entirely different animal. I'm not talking about a dog that just goes to a dog show and is quiet. There is a presence, a pressure. There is a feeling in the air. If you could dream that such a thing exists, it is an entirely different creature. You can walk into a room and without seeing the Tosa, you know that a Tosa is in there. It's just entirely different. Hoping that I've made clear that I'm not talking about every Tosa, but I'm talking about what the breed is intended to be, what they are supposed to be. One day, I had been working at a restaurant. I was in the service industry, and working in a restaurant, came home dead tired, fell asleep. It was super late, and I was asleep. And that morning, the gate was left open, and one of my dogs got out. Lo and behold, it's Mufasa, right? I mean, again, just this big black force of nature. And when he looks at you, he is looking at you with a look that for him, he's just looking at you. But his expression was such that it was constantly like, if you dare. You know, he was, Mufasa means king, and boy did that dog carry himself like one. He saw himself beneath no one, human or animal. He was 100% looking at you as a peer at best when he was looking at most people. And again, just very, very intimidating. But because of the way I raised him, he wasn't just running around the neighborhood and raising hell. And you know, I'd had him and Sarabi out, and they got a chance to meet the kids in the neighborhood and stuff like that. The kids loved playing with them. They absolutely adored those dogs. Um, so when Mufasa got out, everybody kind of took it upon themselves to help get him back in. And he wouldn't listen to anybody. Anybody. And if somebody tried to grab his collar, he'd give them a look like, is that really what you want to do? You know? And I remember my dad, I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story. He might. but but I remember my dad trying to get Mufasa under control. And my dad and we had our disagreements about how to train a dog, what a dog should behave like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and to be fair, he wasn't anything different than what you would expect a typical dad to be like. This animal is in my house. I feed it. If it doesn't do what I say, then it can go. You know. Um, that being said, it's still not how to train a dog. You can't come to them with expectations and demands. You know. Um, and of course, he eventually did come around. He eventually did come around, but not before this day, because I remember everybody was trying to get this dog under control as far as he was concerned. Mufasa was like, "You are not my leader," and it was funny because I think that was one of the first times where my dad was brought face to face with the fact that he couldn't just demand to be a dog's leader. Well, that's my son's dog. He knows I'm my son's dad, so he'll do as I say. No, if you didn't earn it, you don't get it. If you didn't build a relationship with that dog, you don't got it. It's not just oh, you get to do whatever you want because he's seen us interact. No. And while he's not going to attack you or anything like that, he's not just going to treat you like a stranger. That doesn't mean he's going to do what you say. And if it comes down to a choice between me or you, he's going with me 100% of the time, you know? And again, it was, I think, one of the first times my dad got face to face with the fact that he wasn't able to just foist his expectations on a dog and the dog does what he says. I think that was eye-opening for him, but as you can imagine, it was also quite frustrating, probably a bit infuriating, because he couldn't get him. Mufasa didn't growl at him or anything like that, but he wouldn't let him touch him. And I remember being woken up from my sleep. My dad was furious. He was like, boy, you need to go out there and get that dog. And I'm sitting here like, wait, what? Like, you imagine you're just waking up and that's the first thing you hear. He's not explaining what's going on. He's not telling me anything that's happening or anything like that. He's just frustrated. He's just very frustrated. And after, a few minutes of repeating the same thing over and over again, we finally get to the understanding that Mufasa got out and he's out. He's not in the yard, and my dad can't get him and put him back up. So I'm like, okay. And I'm half awake. I come downstairs. I go outside the front door. I look around, and I'm not really seeing Mufasa. And then the next thing I know, I look one direction, he's not there. I look the other direction, he's not there. And I look back again the one direction, and there he is. He's just walking over to me. And I'm like, okay. So I walk my half awake behind over to the fence and over to the gate. And he walks inside, doesn't miss a step, just walks straight inside, head down, relax, just chill, kind of strolling as if we just finished a long walk. And I close the gate behind him. And then I'm like, I don't get how hard that was. Like, you woke me up for this. Like, I don't get why you woke me up for this. You're a grown man. Why can't you do this? Like, what is going on? And, but I'm halfway awake, right? So I'm walking back inside and getting ready to go back to bed because I'm still tired. And one of the kids in the neighborhood, and I say kid, he's probably 14, 15, somewhere around there. 13, 14, 15, somewhere around there. And he stops me. He says, Mr. Corey. And I say, what? I believe his name was Dustin. What's up, Dustin? What's up? And he says, I've never seen that before. No, I've never seen a dog that obedient. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I walked outside and walked over to the fence. And he said, Dustin told me that the whole time, it wasn't just my dad trying to catch Mufasa and put him back. It was everybody in the neighborhood, all the kids that happened to be out, some of the adults that felt like they could help. There were a ton of people that were trying to get that dog back into the yard, and he just flatly respected no one. And he was saying that the moment that I came outside, his whole countenance changed. The dog's whole countenance changed. He went from head up, chest out, tail up, ears up, to tail level with his back, neck level with his back, ears relaxed. The whole body just chilled out and turned into this kind of slow walking, chilled out, absolutely relaxed dog. And he just walked over to me and then followed me all the way back to the fence, went back in the yard, and I closed the door and there was no fight. And he was saying, I don't even think you said anything. And I was like, of course not. I didn't say anything. I shouldn't have to say anything. He knows where he belongs. And I'm like, he knows he had no business out of that yard in the first place. Who told him to get, I'm sitting here frustrated because somebody woke me up. Like, in my head, those are my thoughts. But anyway, I finished chatting with Dustin and I went back to sleep. And when I woke back up, I thought about what he said. And, it occurred to me, hey, that's not usual. I didn't tell him anything. I didn't have to repeat anything or say anything. I didn't have to say anything. I didn't. I just walked outside. He was already walking towards me. So I just started walking towards the fence. And again, there was no thought in my mind that if I turn my back on him, he's going to take off this way or take off that way. I didn't feel the need to grab him by the collar or put a leash around him with a lasso or anything like that. I didn't need to do any of that. Never crossed my mind. Never once. It's just the only thoughts that were crossing my mind were frustration at, what are you doing outside of your crowded side of the yard in the first place? Don't you know I'm trying to sleep? Like, that's what I was thinking. I didn't think, oh my goodness, he's going to take off running again. I didn't think any of that. And I'm sure we passed by several people. We passed by, this is a neighborhood in the city, so we passed by at least a couple cats. We passed by squirrels because we got those in Houston, right? Never crossed my mind that he might take off after any of that. Cars are driving by, kids are running by, all of that never once crossed my mind. And the reason why isn't because I didn't know dogs might be tempted by those things, but it's because it never crossed my mind that he might deviate from where I was going. So already in my thinking about this, I can see, wait, Corey, you're pretty spoiled because most dogs, as a matter of fact, 9 out of 10 dogs, as a matter of fact, dogs that aren't Tosas don't do this. They don't do this. You've caught every neighborhood dog on the planet in the few years that you've lived here at this residence, and none of them are like this. If you do catch them, you need to put something on them, a leash or something. And if you don't have that, grab them by the collar, pick them up, grab them by the scruff of the neck, grab whatever you can grab to make sure they don't take off again. When it comes to the Tosa, I never once thought of that. Never once worried about that with Mufasa. Never once. And again, we got to the fence. We got to the gate. I didn't tell him to go inside. I didn't scold him. I didn't talk to him at all. I just went to the gate and stood by it. I don't even remember looking behind me to see if he was coming. I was just standing there thinking about the fact that I was awake in the first place. And as I was standing there thinking about it, he walked past me into the yard, just went on about his way. And I closed the fence. It wasn't, me holding my breath, hoping that he would go in and stay in or anything like that. It wasn't a fight to get him in the yard and then a fight to close the gate. And no, it wasn't any of that. He walked in. He walked in like it was his idea. And I'm, closing the gate as a matter of fact. And to me, this is perfectly normal. This is perfectly exactly what, life has been and should be. So why would I do anything different? Like, this is what the dog should do. So he's doing what the dog should do, and I'm doing what I need to do in order to get back in my bed. That was it. And again, for me, reading up about samurai, learning more about them and things like that, again, the more I see of the culture of the Japanese people, the more I see of the history of the samurai, the more I say, oh yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, that falls right in line. This, that, or the other thing, go down that list. Again, I think that the depth of that is remarkable. But if you don't have those kinds of experiences, or if you don't have the eye to see that and that kind of knowledge, you're not going to recognize it when it does happen. And if the only understanding you have of the Tosa is that it's a fighting breed and therefore it must be like a pit bull, if the only understanding you have of a Tosa is that it's a large aggressive mastiff and therefore it must be like a fila, it must be like a presa, no, you don't got it. All you're going to do is skip over all the things that they do that are like Tosas. And if they do have a moment that's not like a Tosa, if they do have a moment where they have a flash at another dog, if they do have a moment where they aren't acting like what a Tosa should act like, you're going to say, instead of saying this is out of character for the breed, let's get you back in line, you're going to say, aha, I knew it was a fighting breed. I was starting to worry there. And that's what I'm talking about, people who've had a Tosa or two or three or four, and you think that the breed is supposed to be super aggressive to other dogs. They're supposed to be, essentially out of control. And that should stop you right there. The Japanese do not want or create a dog that is out of control. That's completely antithetical to the culture and the people themselves. Discipline, honor, all of these things. They have apprenticeships, equivalent of apprenticeships for virtually every traditional job there. There's making tea that has rules, structure, and you have to learn in an apprenticeship. You want to be a geisha? You want to be an oiran? You want to be archer? You want to take up swordsmanship? Do you want to take up martial arts? Do you want to take up anything? Do you want to take up making silk robes? Do you want to take up preparing sushi? Do you want to be a chef? Anything in that country? I'm not familiar with their education system, so I don't know if there's a degree, for instance, at a university that you can get for some of these things, but I know for a fact that there is an instructor you can find that will take you, well, I don't know about, every individual person, but in general, there are people there that take on other people as apprentices to teach them the way. And more oftentimes, the way is something that is much, much, much older than the person that is teaching, because they were taught by somebody who was taught by somebody who was taught by somebody through an apprenticeship. If you even look at the Yakuza, right? The Yakuza, they don't start even as gangsters. They start pouring tea. They start by pouring tea. They start by being an errand boy. And then as time goes on, they get more and more responsibility, more and more tasks as they show themselves able to handle those things and able to manage those things. But they don't start as a boss. They don't start as any of that, And it's not to say that, if you look at like the Italian mob and the mafia and organized crime here in the US, it's not to say that people start at a high rank. No. But they give them low-ranking jobs more as, that's just your status. You're a little bit of a peon, so I'm going to give you a peon job. No. In Japan, and even in the Yakuza, the job that you're given at the lower level is intended to teach you something. It's not, hey, you got to pay your dues and do this menial work. No, this is where your education begins. Start by learning craft. Start by learning attention to detail. Start by learning respect and honor. Start by learning how to carry yourself. Start by learning these things. And then we'll go from there. It's not everybody else had to start here, so you have to start here. No. That's just completely out of character for these people. And it's best for you to understand them through the lens of their culture than it is for you to try to say, oh, this person did this and that person did that, and therefore, no. Understand the people. Okay? When it comes to the Tosa, understand the people that made the Tosa. The kind of people that made the Tosa. These were not people who valued a loss of control. These are not people who valued going bonkers. These are not people who give each other public displays of affection. Like, these are some of the most strict and structured people around. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just a difference. It's a different culture. I'm not even saying that we're bad because we're not like that here in the West. But I am saying that these are very, 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 very focused people when it comes to discipline, when it comes to to work, to character, to your disposition. Your all of this is going to be extremely important. Your temperament. Over there, temperament takes on its other meaning. It's not just how you behave, it's your temper, how you've been formed, like tempered glass or tempered metal. It's how you've been shaped and disciplined and formed into the thing that you will one day become. That is the temperament that they have and value there. Like, that is just entirely different. So when we look at the Tosa, understand that. Understand that. Okay? It's not to say that there aren't Labradors who hate the water. It's not to say that there aren't Newfoundlands who hate the water. It's not to say that there aren't German Shepherds who are terrified of sheep. It's not to say that there aren't, I can go down the list. It's not to say that there aren't cattle dogs who never get off of their behinds. It's not to say that there aren't greyhounds who won't chase. There absolutely are. But that's not what the breeds are expected to be. You've had a couple Tosas. They were dog aggressive. But that's not what the breed is expected to be. Okay? You've had a couple Tosas. They didn't do what you said. But that's not what the breed is expected to be. And I'm not trying to rag on anybody or put anybody down. Your experience is your experience. And I work as a dog trainer and behavior therapist. You can ask anybody that has had me as a trainer, any clients that I've ever had. I've never put down anybody for their experience. Okay? I'm not going to do that. That's not the business I'm in here. No, you do the best of what you know and what you kind of shape your life around, or shape your understanding of things around, is your experience. So I'm not here to put you down, but I am here to help you understand that there is a difference between your experience and what the intended reality is, what the limits of the capacity of this dog is, or these dogs are. Okay? When it comes to what defines a proper Tosa, self-control, discipline, a very loyal servant. They're not a slave. They don't see themselves as a slave, and they don't see you as a slave master. And if you try to boss over them, you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt. But if you can earn their respect, again, a daimyo was not a fighter. They were not somebody who could pull out a sword and take on a samurai, their greatest samurai servant, and fight them even to a draw. No, they'd be murdered. These were often very soft people. They were educated in formal education, lots of different things. They were even taught society and how to behave in society and things like that, and like a lot of really good stuff like that. That's good, but they were not taught expressly how to fight. Now, some of them might have been, but even so, and some of them might have even trained with their samurai. So it's not to say they didn't have the ability to, it's just that it wasn't common. And I bring that up because I want to say that the way to the samurai's respect was not through force. It was not through power of coming up on them and defeating them in a fight, and then they say, I owe you my life and therefore I will follow you. No. It was not about fighting. It was about leading. You had to be somebody that they felt like they could follow. You had to be somebody that they felt like they could die for. You had to be somebody deserving of their all. Somebody who, if they failed you, they would commit seppuku, taking their own lives because they failed you. It wasn't just coming in and beating them up. And I think far too many people, if you think that that's what you're going to do when you get your hands on a Tosa, you're going to find very, very quickly that's about one of the dumbest things you could do with a Tosa. Do not try to fight your dog. Period. I don't care what kind of dog you've got. But above all, don't try to do that with a Tosa. That's absolutely stupid. No. Be respectful. Be respectable. Be a leader. Be someone the dog can look to and say, yes, you, I will follow. We bring in adult dogs into our program. You know how many times I've been bit by one of the dogs we bring in? The number is 0. Now, mind you, these are dogs that have never seen me, and they're grown by the time I get my hands on them. How is it that they, kind of like Mufasa, start following me without me having to say things? How is it that they respect me? How is it that they obey me? How is it that they follow the rules that I set for them both in public and in private? How is that possible? Is it because I'm out here beating the dogs? Is it because I'm out here flipping them on their back and staring them in the eyes? Is it because I have to do everything that I can do with them while they're puppies? Otherwise, once they become adults, they'll never follow me. They'll never follow you. They'll never be able to go to another person. It's not about any of that. Be respectable. Be a leader. Be a guide, not a boss. Be someone that they will follow. Be someone that they respect. Be something that they can look up to. You won't get it by force. But if you can be somebody who is respectable, if you can be somebody who is worthy of their fellowship, if you can be somebody that they can look up to and say, I trust you. Not, I'm scared of you. Not, oh, you're big and bad and you prove how tough you. No, I trust you. If you can be that, then just as a samurai fought with their life for their lord, just as the samurai took no regard for their own safety and fought for the safety and well-being of the person they followed, just as they took their life's value from their ability to serve, so will your dog, and you won't have to ask for it. If a threat presents itself, the Tosa makes no hesitation at all whatsoever. They are vigilant, they are watchful, they will know. Before you recognize that there's a problem, they will know. Your Tosa will know because it's they take it upon themselves as their job to know. They're not flying off the handle and chasing after everybody. They're not trying to kill every person they see on sight. They don't care about most of the dogs that exist in the West. They're not like that. They take their job seriously, and that is their daimyo. You. And should a threat present itself, they move immediately between the threat and the thing they're trying to protect. There is no hesitation. They do not necessarily move immediately towards the threat. They move in between the threat and the thing that they're trying to protect, because they show that it's not even about their ability to go and deal with that threat. It's about the thing they're trying to protect. So they start by getting in front of it. These are not things you have to teach. These are not things you have to work on or practice or any of that. It is what they do. It is not always something that is very pronounced. Sometimes it's very casual. Sometimes it's very laid back. But when your Tosa moves in between you and somebody, pay attention. Because that is the warning. If that person reaches over you, if that person, reaches over the Tosa, if that person tries to go around the Tosa, then it's all bets off. That is it. If you respect that boundary that they just set and walk on about your business, you'll never know anything was happening. But if you try to cross that dog, it's a whole nother ball game. Whole nother ball game. You will see the samurai in canine form, the precision, the clarity, the focus, the ability to do things that you would not believe a dog is capable of because of their level of intellect. Okay? You think of fighting dogs, you think of dogs that just essentially lose all control and just go balls to walls, go crazy. And that's not what the samurai was. The samurai was not some brawler. They were not some mindless idiot. They had rules, they had structure, they had discipline. Ask how many times they practiced a single cut in a day. 10,000, 20,000. Ask how many times they practiced a single kick, a single toss, a single throw. These people were discipline upon discipline with a little bit of discipline sprinkled on top and some discipline for the sides and dessert. That's what they were. The Tosa is the samurai of this day. And there are a lot of things. They are also the sumo. There are several things. But understand that as the samurai, they are 100% some of the most intelligent creatures you're going to find on this planet. And that does not turn off in combat. As a matter of fact, it turns up. And the dog you thought was kind of slow and laid back and cheesy, there's a whole different level of intelligence. So, when it comes to what is expected of the Tosa, this was not supposed to be this long of a video. I'm sorry, y'all. But I got on a soapbox and started preaching. But when it comes to what you should expect from a Tosa, what you should expect to see, what you should expect as far as behavior, keep that in mind. Thank you, guys. And I think we're gonna call it for the end of this video, and we'll pick up on our next video because I talked too much. Thank y'all. Thank you guys so very much for checking out our channel, for watching our videos. I hope I wasn't too boring. Thank you for following us or watching us. If you do not already follow us, please follow. If you have not liked this video, please like, and please subscribe, and you'll be able to keep up with the next videos we put out about Tosas. We love what we do here. There'll definitely be more videos. And you can learn a bit more about the breed, learn a bit more about us, and hopefully it'll be stuff that you'll find useful. One other thing I would say is that if you can, please share our information. I know a lot of people will say share, but for us it's actually more important. You may not know this, but the Tosa is what we might consider an endangered species here in the US and even in the West. I would say the place that the place that the Tosa is right now is not unlike the place where the pit bull was in the mid-50s throughout the 70s, in that they no longer are used for their original purpose here in the US. Thank God. They are not used for their original purpose. So that kind of leaves a vacuum. The breed's notoriety is going down in that vacuum, but what that opens the door for is for bad actors to get a hold of what remaining specimens there are and use them for, we'll say, nefarious purposes. And when it comes to it, this is a wonderful breed. We just barely got the pit bull to where it's like 50-50 publicity, right? I'd hate for the Tosa to be the next dog everybody hates. So please share as much as you can. Get the information out there about the breed. It took so long for the pit bull to make a comeback, not because of breeding and responsible breeding practice. No, there's always been people that have been breeding pit bulls responsibly. You know, what it took was having people in their corner. Advocates, people who could stand up and say, that's not the way pit bulls act in reality. That's a dog that's been abused. That's a dog that's been mistreated. That's a dog that's been mistrained. And that can happen to any breed, you know? And the more that those people get out there, the more you see the pit bull coming out in a better light. You know, unfortunately, it's still got a long way to go, but that was the change. And the same thing is true for the Tosa. We need people who are going to get out there and say, hey, look, that behavior right there, that's not a Tosa. This, that, the other thing, that's not Tosa behavior. This is an example of an unfortunate set of circumstances that befell an individual dog. It is not what is to be expected of the breed as a whole. So when it comes to it, I think it's super important that you share, even more than liking and subscribing, which would be awesome. But share so that the information gets out there and more people learn the truth about the Tosa. All of it, not just the fighting past, but where they are today and where they're heading. Hopefully, more people will see this, more people will share, and the information will be out there. Again, you don't necessarily have to want to get a Tosa yourself, but learn about the breed. We need more advocates. Hopefully, some people watching this will find that true and become an advocate for this wonderful, amazing breed. Thank you guys so much for your time. We'll let you go and enjoy your life and let Mr. Dante get on to his kibble for the day.